Tiered plan is exactly what it sounds like. The prices are tiered, but it's tiered based on usage parameters. So an example would be everything in between 0, we'll just go over like 2 variations. Everything in between 0 and, well, hold on, 1200 kilowatts would be something like what? This would be like a TXU plan. 0 to 1200, 10 cents. And then everything 1200 and 1 plus, it typically goes up.
19 or
yeah.
so?
19. So you're only ever going to see 2 tiers or 3 tiers, and that's basically it. There's one plan that you may run into, and it's got 4 tiers, and it's Constellation, and we'll go over that in a minute. But I think I've only ever seen this plan once or twice in 5 years. So typically, you're only ever going to see 2 tiers or 3 tiers. You won't see the tiers if they don't hit the tier. So what that means is if you have a bill, and this customer that's on this tiered plan, 0 to 1200 kilowatts, they pay 10 cents. Everything above 1200 kilowatts, they pay 19 cents. If they don't use 1200 kilowatts, you won't see this on the bill. So this customer is going to say to you, I'm only paying 10 cents. Why would I switch to 11 cents, right? But if they were to have used 1300, they're going to pay 10 cents for every kilowatt up to 1200. They still get that price. But then every kilowatt after that, they pay 10 cents for the 1200 and then 19 cents for the other 100. Does that make sense? So if they use 2000 kilowatts, they're going to pay 10 cents for the 1200 and 19 cents for the 800. So how does the Ambit tiers work? We'll do the 3 just as an example so you guys can see it. The usage parameters can range. Sometimes it's 0 to 800. Sometimes it's 0 to 1200, like a previous example. Sometimes with Ambit, it's 0 to 5, 501 to 1000, and 1000 plus. Sometimes with Ambit, it's 0 to 8, and then 8 to 2000, and 2000 plus. So I'm giving you examples, but these aren't like concrete. So as long as you understand how a tiered program works, you don't need to necessarily know every price and every parameter because they're all going to be different per company. And Ambit themselves could have multiple different variations of a tiered program. But you just need to know what to look for. And anytime you see a parentheses or you see a hyphen, this usage for this usage, then that might be an indication that it's a tiered program. And I'll pull up some examples and send them on Slack so you guys can see them. But Ambit, TXU, those are the ones that we run into the most with tiers. So in this scenario, you can see the more they use, the more they charge. But in other scenarios, it could be that 0 to 500 is 10 cents, 501 to 1000 is 8 cents, and then everything above 1000 is 18 cents. So again, just understand as I explain this, the parameters can change, the prices can change. But what you're looking for is, are they on a tiered program? So we would consider this a specialty program because it requires you in some cases to explain how that program works. Because in this scenario, if the customer is using 1000 kilowatts every single month, let's say 1400, 1500, they're not using this plan correctly. Now, if they were only using 500, well, what could you really do about that, right? The price difference is 4 cents, but you could kind of sell on the fear of what if. Also, keep in mind, they're not using anything, which means what's a 4 cent difference on a couple hundred kilowatts? It's nothing, right? So the 150 bill credit will more than make up for that. So there's always a way to pitch. There's always a way to sell. So in a scenario where they are using it correctly, you have some leverage. And then a scenario where they're not using it correctly, you have the easiest leverage you can get. This plan is meant for people who don't use a lot and you use too much, it's not worth it, blah, blah, blah. You're always going to pay double. So but you have to be able to identify this in order to navigate that situation correctly. What I think happens too often is we see something as an easy target and we pitch the wrong problem, and we could have navigated that scenario a little easier had we just understood what we were looking at. Because yeah, you got to sell, you got to pitch it, right? You got to get customers to understand, and you got to get them to want Reliant. But how much easier is it for them to want it if they understand their problem? Well, the best way for them to understand their problem is you got to explain the program that they're on. But once you have the bill, the hook, it's just problem solution, right? It's not necessarily sell, 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 problem solution. So I think if we look at it from that angle, I think it might be easier to pitch people. All right, let's move on to a new one. We got bill credit plan, flat bill plan, tier plan, cashback, and ultimate perks.